permission of the Honorable Chair to now the
Joseph Girbon said it well when he said, an ounce of mediation is worth a pound of arbitration and a ton of litigation. The use of mediation to solve disputes is almost as old as civilization. As soon as Adam tasted the apple and his tribe increased, life changed and disputes arose. Mediation has evolved with civilization, and these could have only been effectively solved by mediation.
Rightly, Justice Vineet Saran said that Justice Vineet Saran needs no introduction here. He was the patriarch of this institution for more than 2 years, and we still feel his presence here. And I would simply say, welcome to your home, sir. And always, when he comes, he used to have a hectic schedule, and guess whatever events we arrange, and don't say a word of no.
On studying the pattern of pendency of cases in Odisha, I have found that the large number of civil cases are focused on the eastern districts of Odisha, running from the north to the south. And predominantly, these are cases involving family matters, commercial matters, but there is an intensity of civil litigation in the eastern seaboard of Odisha. And there will be many reasons for that. Of course, there are some cities in the western Odisha, like Sambalpur also, which sees a lot of civil litigation. We have to encourage a culture of mediation in Odisha. We've opened the mediation center for the High Court. There are, of course, these permanent Lok Adalats for public utilities, which sort of do a kind of mediation. But largely, the lawyers here are used to adversarial litigation. And therefore, the judges too deal with largely adversarial litigation. They do attempt at mediation at the personal level in the chambers and family matters. The Family Courts Act itself encourages mediation. But mediation as a culture, as part of the whole litigation culture, is yet to grow fully in Odisha. So we are making the first steps after a gap of almost 6 to 8 years. We had the first mediation workshop for lawyers. We've had 2 sets of trainings, one for the Cuttack and the other for the Bhubaneswar lawyers, and this time for the judicial officers. As the resource persons will tell you, for being a mediator, you have to have a different mindset. And there is something to training oneself as a mediator. You could be an expert lawyer, you could be a senior lawyer, you could be a law professor, you could be very learned in the law, you could be very sharp in your advocacy skills, but mediation requires something else. First of all, mediation requires you to be completely objective and to recede, in a sense, to let parties come out with their stories. What mediation does is to enable parties to speak in their own voices. What happens is, you've heard of this phrase, lost in translation. You go to the lawyer, you explain your case to him, he then drafts a petition or drafts an affidavit. Very often the client doesn't understand what is written in the affidavit. The lawyer says, sign here, sign here, sign here. The party very faithfully signs it. When the party is in the box in the court, and the lawyer for the other side is asking the party, did you really say this about your wife? Did you really say this about your husband? They're completely taken aback. And they're caught unawares. This is not what they meant to say about their spouse. But the lawyer has said it. Why? Because some decision under section 498A says that all these elements must be present if it is really going to be cruelty. So the lawyer decides, okay, all these elements must be present. So I'll make the person say through an affidavit that my spouse did all these things to me. Court. And parties are stuck with it at the first level, at the second level. And a lot of bad blood comes out in pleadings which was perhaps not intended by the parties. Then we have this necessary and relevant parties, correct? Proper and necessary parties. That concept in CPC, where you can only implead representation. Thank you. Pranam.
Brother Muralidhar, the dynamic Chief Justice of this Odisha High Court. Mediation is important because it involves the parties who are litigating, who are at loggerheads, and a solution is to be brought out from by suggestions which are given by the parties. A mediator is only there to facilitate such solutions coming from the parties. There's a difference between conciliator and mediator. Conciliator suggests terms of settlement, whereas mediator does not suggest any such settlement. The settlement terms should come out from the parties themselves. Well, judicial officers are here who are to be trained as mediators, and I wish them all the best. One piece of advice I would definitely like to give to the judicial officers while being trained as a mediator and while acting as mediators would be, of course, that the resource persons and the trainers would be better able to suggest. But my advice and suggestion would be that when you act as a mediator, you should forget that you are in a position of authority. As a judicial officer, you always feel that you have the authority, you will decide the case, you will do this. But as a mediator, you must know that authority is not to be used and not to be used at all.
Training of mediators, and particularly the 40 hours training program as designed by the MCPC of the Supreme Court of India, is nothing new. It has been happening for quite some time in our country and also in our state. In fact, as pointed out by some of the speakers, very recently we had a 40-hour training program for advocate mediators. But what is unique about today's program is that for the first time, judicial officers will be trained as mediators.